Okay, let's get started. So, welcome. So, simultaneous interpretation is being provided. English speakers may need to select English as their language. And so, if you're accessing Zoom from a computer, click the globe icon located at the bottom of the screen and choose English. And if you're accessing Zoom from a smartphone, click the three dots More option on the bottom right side of the screen and choose Language Interpretation. Then choose English and press Done on the top right side of the screen. And everyone will have to select the language, especially if you intend to hear anyone asking questions later on.
Bienvenidos, buenas tardes. Estaremos proporcionando interpretación simultánea junto con la presentación en inglés. Les pedimos a las personas hispanohablantes que elijan su idioma. Si está incorporándose a esta reunión a través de una computadora, en la parte inferior de su pantalla encontrará un globo terráqueo. Lo puede elegir y presionar español. Si escucha dos voces, puede también presionar apagar el audio original para solamente escuchar la voz de sus intérpretes. Estaremos interpretando Fabiola y una servidora Heidi en el otro canal. Si en dado caso usted está entrando a Zoom a través de un teléfono inteligente o una tableta, puede encontrar esta función en los 3 puntos o donde dice la palabra más o more en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla. Ahí encontrará la acción que dirá interpretación. Lo mismo, señale el español, pero aquí muy importante que presione la palabra done o finalizado para poder activar la acción. Thank you.
All right, next slide. So, good evening. I'm William Turner IV, an air pollution specialist who has embarked on a journey to help support CARB's initiatives, so to clean California's air. So I work in the heavy duty strategy section where I help implement the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project by evaluating manufacturers that can participate in the program. So in addition, I am temporarily leading the evening community meetings, which I enjoy because I can continue to learn about other CARB initiatives and to listen to you. And that's you, the community. So thank you for being here. And before we get mired in the details, there are a few housekeeping items that we must address. So this meeting is being recorded and will be available on our meetings and workshops webpage in about 2 weeks or so, including the agenda, slides, and attendee list. And Steph will drop a link to the chat where this information can be found. And so we have our meeting agreements. We operate in a challenging environment. Nevertheless, these meetings are about community and sharing information. So our meeting agreements are here to alleviate challenges by first being respectful. So let's be kind and create a comfortable space for everyone to share their thoughts and experiences. Second, take space and/or make space. So if you're usually quiet, challenge yourself to contribute more. And if you talk a lot, leave room for others to participate. Third, let's listen to understand. So listen without judgment or jumping to conclusions. And fourth, let's consider equity. We may all agree on the what, but we may not all agree on the how. However, we can all aim to develop solutions with fairness and equal treatment in mind. So people from all over California are here to work together on the clean transportation initiatives. And so these diverse perspectives can help us overcome barriers. And so with these meeting agreements in mind, let us continue. So, what is the purpose of an evening community meeting? Our annual funding plan development process involves daytime public workshops and work group meetings on various incentive projects. However, we understand that community members face unique challenges attending these meetings compared to representatives from industry, government, and non governmental organizations. So, CARB continues to host monthly evening community meetings to make it easier for community members to engage with us. And so our goals for these meetings are to provide a space for community voices and priorities, brainstorm solutions for clean transportation needs, highlight key funding plan information, and foster ongoing communication between CARB staff and the community. Next slide. And so CARB staff wants to ensure we provide community members with a wide variety of ways to collaborate with us. And so one way to collaborate with us is to participate in these evening community meetings. Excuse me. And so, however, we understand you may not feel comfortable speaking in these forums. So you may also meet with us one-on-one, as we do have an open door policy, and you may also complete the community survey and provide your feedback. And so a link to this will also be posted in the chat. Next slide. And so let's discuss today's agenda. So for today, we will first have the presentation, Cap and Trade Auction Proceeds Fifth Triennial Investment Plan Development Process, followed by statewide Clean Cars for All and financing assistance. We will then take a 5-minute break and have our final presentation, Clean Transportation Regional Outreach Coordinators. After each presentation, there will be time for questions and answers. And after all presentations, there will be time for more questions and answers. And so I will now hand it over to my colleague, Michaela, for questions and comments.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michaela, and I will be facilitating comments and questions this afternoon. We will be opening the floor for everyone to ask questions about logistics, technical issues, or anything covered so far in the presentation. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please use the webinar feature to raise your hand. For those using Zoom online, please click on the raise hand option on the Zoom navigation bar under the Participants tab. For those using Zoom on a mobile application, please click on raise hand option in the More tab. For those who are participating by telephone, please be sure to press 2 and we will call on you accordingly. If you would like to email us a question, please send it to cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov, which is shown on the slide here. Staff will also drop the email address in the chat for everyone. Please make sure to include your name and affiliation, if any, along with your question in the email. My colleague, Maggie, will monitor that email box and let us know if there are any questions sent in. For those on Zoom or on the phone, once your line is open, you can begin to speak. Please state your name and affiliation, if any, first before providing your comment or question. Not currently seeing any hands raised. Sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. But if we don't have any comments and questions now, we can go ahead and begin the first presentation.
All right. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here and speak with you all this evening. My name is Sierra Makarowski, and I'm an air pollution specialist at CARB, working on California climate investments and the Cap and Trade Auction Proceeds Fifth Triennial Investment Plan. I know that's a lot to say, so let's go into some more detail on what all of that actually means. So what is California climate investments and where do the funds for it come from? This graphic shows the cycle of our funding. California Climate Investments is a statewide initiative that puts billions of cap and trade dollars to work, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, strengthening the economy, and improving public health and the environment, particularly in disadvantaged and low-income communities and households. California Climate Investments includes almost 90 programs with a wide range of project types. including affordable housing, renewable energy, public transportation, zero-emission vehicles, sustainable agriculture, recycling, and much more. The funds for California climate investments are generated by the Cap and Trade program, which is one component of a suite of California climate policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The Cap and Trade program includes an allowance auction mechanism that generates proceeds. The state's portion of the proceeds are deposited into the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which then funds programs under California climate investments. Next slide, please. This slide shows how many different state agencies are administering the broad range of California climate investments programs. Currently, we have 24 state agencies that administer these programs, and here at CARB, we have two roles. First, we have an oversight role across the California climate investments portfolio, which includes establishing funding guidelines, quantification methodologies, and reporting procedures. Second, CARB is also an administering agency with programs of its own as well. Next slide, please. So as part of the legislative requirements for California climate investments, 35% of project funding must benefit priority populations, which includes disadvantaged communities and low-income communities and households. In collaboration with our administering agencies, CARB develops priority population investment targets each fiscal year for programs that receive funding. And these are to ensure that California climate investments is able to meet or exceed its overall statutory minimum requirements. So in total then, 74% of project dollars are providing a benefit to priority populations as of the end of May 2023. Next slide, please. This year marks the 10-year anniversary for the California Climate Investments portfolio, and the program has grown significantly in size and in impact in the past decade. It's gone from just 12 agencies administering 20 programs in 2014 to today having twice as many agencies administering almost 90 programs. And California climate investments drives significant greenhouse gas emissions reductions and supports the transition to a low carbon future while providing environmental, economic, and public health co-benefits. California climate investments covers a diverse of programs and project types that range from community-led projects like community car sharing, community composting, and the Sustainable Transportation Equity Project to large-scale projects like transit-oriented affordable housing. California Climate Investments is also implementing a variety of nature-based solutions to sequester carbon and reduce greenhouse gas emissions through strategies like protecting forests from catastrophic wildfires, supporting sustainable agricultural lands, and growing urban forests. More recently, we also have a growing suite of building decarbonization projects, charging infrastructure projects, and cross or multi-sectoral project types. This graphic on this slide shows the expected achievements from our implemented projects, and we expect to release updated data with the upcoming 2024 annual report this spring, which will cover projects through November 30th of 2023. Next slide. Now that we've shared a bit more of the background information about California climate investments, I now want to provide you with some background about our investment plans specifically. So our investment plans serve as a tool to identify priority investments for the cap and trade auction proceeds that can achieve multiple benefits and advance the state's climate, environmental, economic, public health, and equity goals. As I mentioned earlier, the Department of Finance works with CARB and other state agencies to develop high-level recommendations for priority investments. Both CARB and the Department of Finance view this as an opportunity to work together with interested parties to collect input for consideration in the investment plan. I want to note also that the priority investments that are ultimately identified in the investment plan serve as recommendations to the legislature. These highlight potential funding opportunities rather than guaranteeing funding because the legislature and administration determine appropriations through the annual deliberative budget process. We plan to use a three-pronged approach to collect information to guide the development of the investment plan recommendations. The first prong of this involves collecting information from recent legislation and regulations, pertinent state plans, and reports so that we can develop guiding principles and inform our following analysis. The second prong centers around data analysis by creating metrics based on the guiding principles and performing analysis to shape our recommendations. Finally, the third prong focuses on outreach and public engagement, which we hope to accomplish by hosting roundtable meetings, conducting public workshops, and collecting feedback through public comment dockets to solicit input from our internal and external partners. The information that we gather through this process will be combined into a set of recommendations in the investment plan to identify priority sectors and project types. Next slide, please. Now I'll explain some more about the proposed guiding principles that will steer the development of the investment plan. These principles were formulated after review of state plans, with CARB's 2022 scoping plan update serving as the primary reference, alongside other recent state legislation and priorities. Those include Assembly Bill 680, which addresses workforce standards, and Assembly Bill 1757, which calls for the expansion of nature-based climate solutions. The principles aim to identify projects and initiatives that not only reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also promote environmental justice, climate resilience, and economic prosperity for all Californians. Specifically, these principles include some of the goals you see here to work towards carbon neutrality by mid-century, to maximize co-benefits to protect public health, to strengthen community adaptation and resilience to climate change impacts, to foster equitable workforce development and build economic resilience in order to facilitate an inclusive transition, to advance equity and environmental justice, and lastly, and importantly, to partner across all levels of government, including tribal authorities and the private sector, to leverage funding and promote multidisciplinary innovation and equitable adoption of climate solutions. These principles are adaptable and they will evolve based on continuous feedback, so we welcome your thoughts on them in the later discussion. Next, as I said earlier, metrics development and data analysis are very important to guide the recommendations on priority project types, so we can ensure that those investment recommendations can align with the state's overarching goals. To develop these metrics, our plan is to expand on the metrics that were established for the previous fourth investment plan, while incorporating the guiding principles that were created for the fifth investment plan, our current one, to allow for additional metrics development. On this slide, you can see that we have some examples of the metrics we're considering for each guiding principle. For example, to further our goal of achieving carbon neutrality by mid-century, we're proposing metrics like reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, decreases in vehicle miles traveled, and amount of carbon sequestration through land conservation. Once the metrics are finalized, we'll review the available data sources, primarily focusing on data from the California Climate Investments Reporting and Tracking System. Additional data sources like census data and CalEnviroscreen data, which includes socioeconomic, demographic, environmental, and public health information, can be included in these analyses as well. As a whole, these datasets will allow us to conduct analysis to evaluate the effectiveness of each investment type in advancing the state's climate, environmental, public health, and equity goals. Next slide. So now let's talk about the timeline for our investment plan's development process. We started our public process with a public workshop back in February 2024, where we were able to get initial input on our guiding principles, the metrics, and our investment priorities. This spring and summer, we're working with state partners and hopefully many of you to develop our draft investment plan through discussion opportunities like this one. The draft investment plan will come out in late summer for public comment, followed by another public workshop in early fall to present the identified investment priorities and collect feedback on the draft investment plan. Later in the fall, we'll give an informational update to our board and make updates to the draft investment plan based on their feedback and any additional public comment as is appropriate. Finally, the Department of Finance will submit the final investment plan to the legislature in January of 2025. So that is our presentation, and I hope this information has been helpful for you to understand the purpose and development of our investment plan. We have a few questions that we'd like to get your input and perspectives on, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you. So thank you for sharing your time with us today. And I'll go through a few of the questions. Our first question is, what is important to you when thinking about the guiding principles we presented? What do you think should guide our approach? The second question is, what are your thoughts on the proposed metrics to use for prioritizing investments? Are there metrics you saw that you think are important or metrics that you think that we should improve? And finally, what are the investment gaps and priorities that you see as important to address to advance the state's climate, environmental, economic, public health, and equity goals? What would be helpful in your opinion? With that, thank you and looking forward to discussion.
All right, so we are opening the floor up again for everyone to ask questions about this part of the presentation. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please use the webinar feature to raise your hand. Reminder, if you're using Zoom online, please click on the raise hand option on the navigation bar under the participants tab. If you're on a mobile application, please click on raise hand option in the more tab. And those participating by telephone, please be sure to press #2 and we will call on you accordingly. You can also email us to ask us a question at the email on the screen. And please remember to include your name and affiliation. So far, not seeing any hands raised. Oh, okay, we have a couple hands here. All right, Beverly Deschaux, you can go ahead. I've unmuted you.
Good evening. Thanks for extending this time for members of the community who aren't able to participate during the day. My name is Beverly Deschaux. I'm with the Electric Vehicle Association of California Central Coast. I was trying to formulate my thoughts. That's why I didn't raise my hand right away. So there are a number of initiatives that the state, and I'm not exactly sure who in the state, are doing that disincentivize solar. So the NEM 3 has in reducing by 85% the amount that people who have paid with their own money to have their rooftop solar on their roof to generate local renewable energy has been cut by 85%, which has seen an 80% reduction in new rooftop solar on residences. There's now a proposal somewhere, I forget which part of the government is doing this, that would disallow solar benefits for anyone with multiple meters, which means multi-tenant housing, which means churches, which means small farms, which means a number of organizations. This is a total disincentive for for community members to participate in decarbonizing. And the third one is the AB 205, which is going to basically tax everyone, although it presents itself as that it's benefits low-income people. It does not. It's still adding a tax to what people already use, which is a disincentive for people to use less if they're already going to have a basic fee to the utilities. So it might start as low as $30 for low-income people, and higher income people will have more, but it's still going to tax people. So these are not going in the direction of what our state is saying as its goal to decarbonize. I'm not sure if this fits in here, but something that's necessary is to get workplace charging for electric vehicles, to get multi-tenant housing charging so that people are incentivized to adopt electric vehicles. That's now one of the biggest things that we hear, is that people are not going to get an electric vehicle if they're not able to charge at home, and have lower rates at that. And for medium and heavy duty, again, I don't know if this fits into here, but these are my thoughts. That medium and heavy duty charging infrastructure is necessary. What we see in disadvantaged communities is that they are the most greatly affected by the heavy duty vehicles that are going into their neighborhoods, going into ports, for example, Oakland, Los Angeles, and Long Beach. And so that infrastructure would be very helpful for allowing and creating the ability for heavy duty and medium duty vehicles to transition to cleaner electric vehicles. As we watch the progress of the grid on the Central Coast, we have Central Coast Community Energy with goals of 60% renewables by 2025. And we're not sure if we're really going to quite make that one, but the ultimate goal is by 2030, there will be 100% renewable energy, which means that all vehicles will be driving on sunshine, all electric vehicles, I should say. And on the Central Coast, 70% of our emissions are coming from vehicles, as well as some of the other counties in the state, such as Sonoma. So that I have more thoughts, but there's too much. So thank you for listening. And I don't know how that fits into your questions, but those are my thoughts.
We
Thank you.
appreciate it. And I'll also introduce my colleague, Chen Mittlerner, who's also working with me on the investment plan. She's going to help with talking about the discussion as well.
Thanks, Sierra and Beverly. We really, really appreciate the feedback you provided. And you asked the question whether this is the right place, the right venue for you to share these kind of thoughts. Absolutely. So as Sierra mentioned, the California Climate Investments covers almost 90 programs now. So it really spans across the entire economic sectors. So the feedback you provided, especially on the charging infrastructure and for heavy-duty vehicles and light-duty vehicles, is exactly the type of feedback that we are seeking from the communities. So really appreciate that you elevate these points to us. Thank you, Beverly.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Beverly. We have another raised hand from Albert Russell. Albert, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thanks a lot. First, thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Can you first back to the one slide, I think, or two slides before that you mentioned the plan started by February 14, 2024? The first question, yes, thanks a lot. Can we share with us what happened that February 15, 2024, and then other people get involved? And then do you want to hear the other opinion as well? That's my first question. The second question here is that your plan is going to just focus in EV, or you're going to be hydrogen as well? Because reality, the hydrogen is more green than just the EV, because during the EV, when we build the battery, we actually damage the environment. After the battery is dead, let's go after 100, 200,000 miles, then we're going to recycle the battery again, we damage the environment. And the hydrogen reality is much better than just the EV. Do you have any plan to provide or support the hydrogen plan or technology? The third question here is, whether some kind of the startup that I'm actually have as one of them here for decarbonization industry. Do you have any plan for supporting as well? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Albert, for the questions. It's quite comprehensive, so we'll go over them one by one. The first question you posed is regarding the workshop and what happened during the workshop and whether we are whether we want to hear other opinions. So a quick overview on what happened during the day. So we convened a public workshop on February 15th. And then during that workshop, we give a presentation that's similar to the presentation that you have had. And then we opened up to questions, which is very similar to the format we have today. So we heard some really valuable feedback from the general public that day. So, but as Sierra said, we are continuing our outreach efforts. So we are absolutely welcoming continuous feedback on our investment plan throughout its development process. So that's why we are here today. So please share your feedback with us. And to your second question, in addition to electric vehicle, are we supporting hydrogen? So I think overall, when we think of the low carbon transportation, it's much more broad than just the zero emission, than just the battery EV. So we are definitely also looking to incentivize fuel cell hydrogen vehicle as well. So even though the hydrogen vehicle is compared to the EV, it's still at an earlier stage. So it might need additional incentives to jumpstart its process. So that feedback is definitely welcome. And we do have, even though it might not be in the existing programs, we do have that ability to provide that feedback to the legislature through the investment plan. So if you have any kind of thoughts for demonstration programs or pilot programs, so please provide that feedback to us as well. And to your third question, whether there is industrial decarbonization kind of capacity under California climate investments. So yes, absolutely. There are already existing programs under California climate investments to decarbonize the industrial sectors. But if you have certain technologies in mind that could further decarbonize the industrial sector that needs some financial incentive support, we welcome this kind of feedback. So just some clarification and a response to your question, Albert. Please let me know if this response addresses your questions, or do you need further clarification?
Thanks a lot. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and Albert, if you have some additional thoughts that you would like to communicate offline, definitely we would be very happy to do that as well.
Sure, I will send the email to the email that you share. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
You.
Thanks.
All right, we have Lala Agamirov Nos. You can go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, you hear me now? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have some question because I submitted a proposal and a survey. Two of them I submitted already. I have some question. If there is any new approach for lighter cars, trucks, because we know that pollution, it is not only coming from GHG emissions, yeah? They coming from very dangerous PM particles, which coming under very heavy trucks and pressure going to the tires start burning, producing this very dangerous PM pollutants. So I am presenting new, more lighter technology. Maybe later we will discuss that. But there is any approach for integration lighter technology or just lighter technology for make cars, trucks, all actually transportation, which produce 73% of GHG emissions, make them more lighter, because heavy packs of batteries really provide big pressure, huge pressure to the tires. And when tires moving, it is plastic actually. So it produces big pressure, and from tires coming very small, dangerous particles. So it is not only we're talking about GHG emissions, we're talking about really dangerous pollutants. If there is any approach to make our transportation more lighter, more friendly to environment, less pollutant, it is my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lala, for raising that point. So I think, yeah, you are definitely right. It's not just the tailpipe emissions, but it's also from right. It's also the emissions from the tires. It's the emissions from the brakes. So they all generate air pollutants.
Yeah.
So do we have this technology? Yes, the technology exists, but the thing is that the customers, they do want to buy bigger and larger vehicles. So how do we make sure the customers are no longer desire this type of vehicles? Or how do we build transit-oriented communities so that will require less driving going forward? So people could get to the destinations, their key destinations, without require a car, but instead they can use active transportation, or they can use public transportation. This is really, I think, a bigger policy question that we are collectively thinking, not just within CARB, but across state agencies, to think about how we can integrate land use, transportation, and housing policies to develop the transformative type of communities that really will reduce the needs to drive. And if they do need to drive, as you said, they don't have to add longer a range, so they can build lighter cars with smaller batteries to just get from A to B. So
yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think we may have soon lighter technology with much less number of heavy packs of batteries. Why we need that heavy packs of batteries? To make the same energy density which was with gasoline, which is much difficult to do with small little batteries. Of course, that's why it is big amount and they are very heavy. But does it really worth it? Our life, our children's life. We are all in the car. We need that. We want that, or we don't need want that, but we need cars, and they produce 73% of GHG. Oh, I'm talking only about GHG emissions. I'm not talking about PM pollutions, which are much dangerous, much dangerous. So if there is any interest of that, I submit already a survey for new proposal. You can contact me if you know my website, innovativecrystals.com. I am receiving about 30 emails every day, and it will be international, must be international collaboration, because unfortunately in North America we don't have that. And it is very simple, not very new. It is piezo materials which produce clean, sustainable energy without any chemistry's involvement, under any kind of pressure, vibration, motion, which we wasted. So if there is interest, you can contact me. You know my email address, I think, and my website, innovativecrystals.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Lala.
Thank you.
All right, so we do have a raised hand and a question in the email, but we are at time, so we are going to move forward with the presentation, but Beverly and the email and the question will be first in our next Q&A session.
I'd like to iterate also, Beverly, if you're able to stay towards the end, we have a broader question and answer session. And we can, continue the discussions or the questions that you have then.
And William, I'm just going to jump in here for a second. I will also put my email address in the chat. So in case Beverly cannot stay until the end and she has investment plan related questions, she can just shoot us an email and I can talk to her offline. So she doesn't have to stay if she doesn't have to.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael, and I am a co-lead on the statewide Clean Cars for All and Financing Assistance Program. The statewide Clean Cars for All and Financing Assistance Program, which will launch this year, will provide statewide financing assistance program and expanded Clean Cars for All, or CC4A program, to air districts that do not implement CC4A at the local level. For air districts already operating their own CC4A program, this joint program will offer collaboration opportunities as well as opportunities to support outreach and cross-promotional programs. The tables on this slide list the 5 air districts that already administer the Clean Cars for All program. And they are the South Coast Air Quality Management District, the Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality Management District, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, San Diego Air Pollution Control District, and the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. And they are all open and accepting applications. Next slide, please. Earlier today, we had an implementation work group to discuss preliminary thinking around the rollout of the joint program. One of the items discussed was the program name. We know the joint statewide Clean Cars for All and Financing Assistance Program is a mouthful, and wanted to simplify that by giving the program a name that was familiar and provide a clear and concise branding to assist with outreach. The Drive Clean Assistance Program, or DCAP, originated from a local financing assistance pilot program administered by the CDHC, which is the California Housing, sorry, I can't think of their name exactly right now offhand, but CDHC is Community Housing Development Corporation. There we go. And started in 2016. The local financing assistance program closed in 2023, leaving the program name available for reuse. Additionally, the local financing assistance pilot, high-touch, customer-focused model was the inspiration behind the needs-based model of implementation that will be used for this new joint statewide program. We also believe this program name choice incorporates previous stakeholder feedback to simplify our incentives landscape and not introduce new program names to the mix. Going forward, we'll be referring to the joint program as the Drive Clean Assistance Program. The program administrator, the Community Housing Development Corporation, or CDHC, discussed the proposed rollout program regionally. By focusing on regional rollout, we will start the program in areas of the state that have not benefited proportionally from CARB incentives programs in the past and support the mission of delivering a quality-based program. The idea is to move forward with a regional rollout based on need and program burden, which aligns with the program's equality commitment and needs-based approach that will be implemented. To help us determine where to start, we must identify high-need communities and counties that experience additional burdens to participate in the program, which is what we mean by program burden. To make sure we are able to serve the entire state, we will also need to determine caps for each area, so we have funds available for the areas that follow. Next slide, please. The program administrator has done research on which indicators we can use to help define and determine need indicators by county. We are looking for counties because the most consistent comparable data from number of different sources was at the county level. We have access to federal poverty levels through this USS Census Bureau, which tells us the percentage of population below 300% of the federal poverty level, which is an indicator of poverty. A key requirement for the program is the applicant's household income must be below 300% of FPL, which is why we think this data point is relevant to consider. The EnviroScreen, is another helpful score of data and information that is available for us to consider. The EnviroScreen score looks at a variety of data points to determine an area pollution burden, population characteristics, and offers a combined score of both population burden and pollution characteristics. This data is helpful for the different data points that we're looking at throughout the state. We also think it is important to take into account if the area currently has a CARB-funded light-duty incentive program available to residents. Finally, we believe looking at where previous CARB statewide funding has gone is helpful in highlighting areas in the state that have not received proportional funding. CDHC reviewed the publicly available data through CVRP and statewide financing assistance pilot, the Clean Vehicle Assurance Program, two previous CARB-funded light-duty incentive programs intended to reach lower-income residents to determine the total dollar amounts of grants redeemed by county and how these funding amounts compared to the number of income-eligible households in the county. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. In addition to the need of the county, we also wanted to characterize some of the areas in the state faces additional burdens in participating. We are calling this program burden. In workshops such as the one we offered here, concerns about the lack of access to publicly available charging stations for residents across California, range anxiety, and concerns on where persons can reliably charge vehicles are often burdens to clean vehicle adoption. CDHC was able to review publicly available data on CEC to see number of publicly EV charging stations available in the country or county. A key requirement of the Clean Cars for All pathway of the program is that eligible vehicles must be scrapped at bar certified dismantlers. In some instances, a bar certified dismantler is hundreds of miles from parts of California. This presents a significant challenge for some community members to participate in the program and is a problem that we need to solve. Finally, access to lending is an important to consider for the financing assistance pathway of the program. CDHC reviewed data from the U.S. Federal Reserve that assists a county's credit insecurity by looking at the number of different factors. It is a little like the EnviroScreen score, but for lending. We think this is important because some areas of the state face more barriers in assisting lending solutions than others. CARB staff would like to take this opportunity to receive additional feedback on this initial thinking for the rollout of the Drive Clean Assistance Program. Input received today will be incorporated into the final implementation plans for the program. We will hold an additional work group as well before we roll out the program to provide you with an update on program implementation and provide opportunities for our stakeholders to provide feedback. With that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleagues who will help us facilitate the Q&A period on this material. Next slide.
All right, everyone, we're going to be opening the floor up again to allow you all to ask questions about the program that Michael just described. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question, please use the webinar feature to raise your hand. For those using Zoom online, please click on the raise hand feature on the Zoom navigation bar under the participants tab. For those using Zoom on a mobile application, please click on the raise hand option for more in the More tab. And for those participating by telephone, please be sure to press #2 and we will give you a call accordingly. You can also send an email to the email on the screen, and staff will drop the email address in the chat for everyone. Please make sure to remember to include your name and affiliation along with your question in the email. All right, Beverly, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Did I unmute myself?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I'm not going to address what I had with regard to the last round. I will wait till the end and address those then. So we, the state of California electric vehicle community, have been led to believe that there would be this, the Clean Cars for All would be the same program that has been for all counties as has been in the 5 counties that you've presented. I think there were already 3 counties. I don't know if the full 5 counties were participating before, but I'm wondering why that hasn't happened. It just hasn't extended. The whole program hasn't extended to all counties in California. So what exactly does the CDHC assistance that's being discussed here, what does it mean? Like, is it a grant program? Is it a rebate program? Does it require a vehicle to be scrapped? And what about people who don't have a vehicle and would like to have a vehicle that's an electric vehicle? What about them? So, I think maybe you're talking about financing, but I don't know what that means, if it means grant or if it means loan, which, can be scary to people who maybe don't feel they can afford to pay a loan back. As far as Cal EnviroScreen, our county has an extreme range of incomes, from poverty level to people who work over the mountain in Silicon Valley with $250,000 to $400,000 incomes. So it skews what our county is actually, what the income is, because it goes by the middle, the median, I guess that is. So it's skewed for and it may be for other counties as well. If we were to have daytime charging in workplaces and multi-tenant housing, people could charge during the day when there is an excess of solar generated electricity coming into the grid. The state of California exports during the peak solar hours, and it could shift that load to during the day if there were lower rates by the utilities. And I know you don't really have control over what the utilities do, except maybe you do in some way. And okay. I
I'll go
just have
ahead.
to say, excuse me, let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
I just have to quickly say one thing that is related to the last one, and that is that it isn't tires that are having the problem. The PM 2.5 is coming from diesel trucks, which is the most hazardous to people's health. It's what actually causes cancer and heart disease and deaths. So I just want to say that, but I'll speak to some of the other issues later. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks Beverly for your questions. And I can't speak to the last question, but I want to address hopefully I can address most of your earlier questions on the incentives. So to kind of clarify what the previous presentation was about, it was regarding our joint statewide program that includes financing assistance and Clean Cars for All. And so to kind of clarify, the Clean Cars for All program, which is our scrap and replace program for light duty vehicles, has been available in the 5 largest air districts in the state, which includes Bay Area, Sacramento, San Joaquin Valley, South Coast.
Yes.
And what's the last one? But yeah, the five largest air districts in the state. Those programs are open. And so this joint program is an expansion to provide the same incentive for areas outside of those 5 largest areas. So the rest of the state, essentially. What we mean by a joint program is that we're going to be implementing this joint program with a financing assistance component. So what that means is there's still the scrap and replace, but the financing assistance component is also going to provide low cost loans for anyone participating that has a car to scrap but needs a low cost loan to purchase a newer, cleaner vehicle. But it also has an incentive available for those that do not have a vehicle to scrap but want to purchase a newer, cleaner vehicle. So there's a number of different pathways, but I think the main point here is that this expansion that we're talking about is to provide incentives to areas of the state that have had no access to CARB incentive programs. The other thing I want to point out is that Clean Cars for All, both the existing program and the new statewide program that we're talking about, have a $2,000 incentive that's available for either a charge card for a charging card or for installation of a home charging station. So if someone's going through Clean Cars for All financing assistance, they can also be eligible for an additional incentive for either a charge card that can be used at a public charging station or for the installation of a charging EVSE, a home charging station. All of these programs are, and the other thing I noted is you were talking about like kind of the income, the eligibility. Both of these programs are based on household income. It's limited to folks that are 300% federal poverty level or lower, based on that household income. So it's very equity focused on those most in need. Yeah, so I hopefully I was able to answer the question in terms of like what we're talking about and how this statewide expansion fits in with the existing Clean Cars for All program, existing financing assistance program. This is really an expansion of what we've continued to do. We're really focusing on those that are most in need. So I'll leave it there. And if you have any follow-up questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Stephanie Parent. I'll just add on as far as the kind of the last piece of your comments and questions that was about heavy duty trucks and particulate matter. I wanted to say that I'm the lead staff on the Clean Transportation Incentives Funding Plan that we prepare annually. And the funding plan, it covers all of our incentive programs and projects, from heavy duty vehicles, medium duty vehicles, all the way down to passenger vehicles and even electric bicycles. So while we may not be presenting on heavy duty vehicles or medium duty right now, we do have staff that are working on that. And we will be having some evening community meetings, sessions that will deal with those topics later in the year. And then at CARB in general, we have many programs covering all of the mobile sources. And so another aspect that we have are the state implementation plans. We refer to those as SIPs. And those are for all of the different areas in California. How are they going to come up with a plan that's going to reduce particulate matter or a plan to reduce ozone in their particular area? And those standards for ozone and particulate matter, or PM, are set through the Federal Clean Air Act. And so that's another way that we're also working to reduce PM in the state of California. And I believe we have done a little bit of work. I don't know if I want to say little, just we've done some work related to brake wear and tire wear. I don't know all of the details for that, but you're always welcome to send an email to our Clean Transportation Incentives email box. And, if we don't know the answers to your question, we can find the staff or the experts within CARB that can get you the answers that you need.
Thank you. Let me just say that it isn't that tire particles isn't a problem, but compared to climate change and compared to the PM 2.5 from diesel, it's not. It's a bit of a red herring that people who are not into EVs use. And also, as far as brakes, one pedal driving means that when we take our foot off the brake, off the accelerator, the vehicle is slowed down by itself. Not by itself, but by a mechanism. And we aren't using brakes. We're hardly using brakes at all. So there's that.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So we are at time and we're due for a break. And so if it's possible, Ted Wells, I do want to get to your question, and I wonder if you can hold it to or until the community question and answer session towards the end. We'll come back, and we also have some questions that popped up in the email. So for right now, let's just go ahead and take a 5-minute break. We'll be back here at 6:10, and then we'll finish up with our last presentation, and then have a broader community answer question. Excuse me. Have a broader community question and answer session at the end. Thank you. Okay. So now let us continue with the next presentation.
All right, good evening. My name is Larry Rilera, and I lead teams in our outreach and engagement for clean transportation. During last month's evening community meeting, we introduced our concept for clean transportation, regional outreach, and engagement coordinators. The goal of this initiative is to create awareness of our clean transportation regulations, programs, and solutions through ongoing outreach and engagement. We will implement this concept by establishing dedicated CARB staff in regions of the state. Staff will directly engage with communities and neighborhoods to help increase awareness and access to CARB programs. Since this last meeting in February, feedback was received. This invaluable feedback has been weaved into the concept. Tonight, we will share a little bit more about the concept and the vision for implementation. We also want to continue to solicit your feedback on the concept and how we can operationalize implementation in your neighborhoods. We want to know how neighborhoods can use this engagement to grow community learning and capacity building, access clean transportation solutions, and accrue the benefits of CARB's investments. There will be 6 dedicated staff in 3 regions of the state. Staff will bring expertise and knowledge of our clean, light-duty vehicle and our heavy-duty vehicle program initiatives. They will also support continuous partnerships through ongoing presence and communications. Thank you for your time tonight, and we look forward to hearing your feedback.
All right, we will be opening the floor again for everyone to ask a question about this portion of the presentation. If you would like to make a comment or question, please use the webinar feature to raise your hand. If you're using Zoom online, please click the raise hand option in the Zoom navigation bar under the participants tab. For those using Zoom on a mobile application, please click on the raised hand option in the More tab. For those participating by telephone, please be sure to press #2 and we will call on you accordingly. And if you would like to email us a question, please send it to the email on the screen, which is shown on this slide. Please remember to include your name and affiliation along with your question in the email. All right, so we do have a question from an email. This is from Bob D, and this is about the previous finance statewide program. Is the financing assistance program going to be available beginning in 2025, or will the program be available before the end of this year approximately? Thank you.
So I'll go ahead and take that one. So I think Bob, I think you participated in our work group earlier today. One of the things that we wanted to do was get community feedback on our rollout plan for the joint statewide program. And so we don't have a definitive date for that rollout. We are going to take the feedback that we received today, and we'll have several more public work groups to finalize that date. So essentially, like we're looking to roll that program out regionally, and so in terms of like where you're at, like where you're specifically located, we don't have a specific date for when it's going to be available, but we hope to roll it out sometime either later this year or next year. So I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, and then I have Ted Wells. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Hey, thank you. Number one, I'd like to say, and I represent climateunified.org, small nonprofit. I really like the effort that I'm seeing here and really like the dedication of the individuals kind of around the table here. First comment is, I think we're going to need a lot more money than you got. I think I missed how much money you're planning to spend, but I think we're going to have a bigger need than how much money you got. Second comment is, I really like the last speaker who talked about the regional coordinators. I think that's a really great idea because I think it's probably hard to connect the needs and the wants. So I believe that the regional coordinator concept is a good idea. To operationalize it, I would work to connect those regional coordinators with the local governments, smaller or bigger community nonprofits, and the Chamber of Commerces in the local cities. I think you can build a quick coalition between local government, Chamber of Commerce, and big businesses to build good targets for more decarbonization. And a third comment would be under the Clean Cars for All category and all the financing. And it seems that there may be, a roadblock or a difficulty in connecting that financing to people who want to have an EV. So I guess a suggestion, a thought, or a question would be, is there incentive money that's going to be aligned to local town cities to develop any kind of car or truck share hubs so that individuals who don't necessarily can't afford to go out and get a car or don't want to give up their other car, can they have a hub they can go to so that they can see the vehicle, try the vehicle, share the vehicle, get the experience with the vehicle, the new technology, and get comfortable with it, so to speak, before they have this huge commitment to only have an EV, or perhaps if it's a hydrogen vehicle. I'm not, of course, throwing out a hydrogen opportunity for the hydrogen folks in the room. But what about the car share aspects, incentivizing that aspect to displace those miles to get people comfortable with the area? I think it fits also from the perspective of money's not going to the Bay Area $1 million a year people because they're not going to go to a car share area. It'll go to folks who really need a car or really need a form of transportation. But to enable that, I think you're going to have to get local city, town to run that opportunity so that people can see it, they can see the opportunity, they can try it for themselves. So thank you for your efforts, everybody.
Thank you for that comment. Couple things I can chime in on that for. At least with our Clean Cars for All program, one thing that I want to speak to is that there is an option available for mobility in lieu of a replacement vehicle. We offer up to $7,500 for a combination of alternative mobility options, which can include car sharing, electric bicycles, public transit. So we are thinking about these programs from that perspective. That is one thing. I want to reiterate that for folks that are purchasing electric vehicles through the Clean Cars for All program, there's additional incentive available for charging, either a charge card or in-home charging. Up to $2,000 is available to that program. And then I also want to reiterate that with all of our programs, all of our incentive programs, there's an outreach component, outreach and education component, I should say, which includes making sure that we're really targeting the outreach to communities that really need the incentive, and also providing education in the form of, I think what you had mentioned is exposure to the technology. So our administrators with all these incentive programs, there's things, as an example, ride and drives, providing opportunities for folks in these in impacted communities to come out and drive in electric vehicles, see how it drives, get an exposure to the technology. So I think that I just want to reiterate that we are, it's great questions. I want to reiterate that we are thinking about all of these programs from that perspective: outreach, education, alternative modes of transportation. All of these things are available through Clean Cars for All financing assistance, and all of our suite of incentives that we offer. So I'll leave it there, and I'm happy to take any follow-up questions.
All right, I see Beverly has her hand raised. Beverly, would you like to go ahead and ask your question?
Is this the time for general questions? So I could go back to what was discussed earlier?
Yes, this is a perfect time.
Good.
Yeah, we can open up the floor, to more general questions. If anybody has any other questions or comments they'd like to address with any of the presentations that were shown to us today, or if you just have any other general comments that you'd like to bring up to CARB, yes, please let us know.
Great. Thank you so much for this discussion and giving us the time to actually speak to you instead of having a 2-minute time to just quickly say something. So I would like to address the hydrogen issue. What it takes to make hydrogen is some form of energy, which if you wanted to make green hydrogen would need to be some form of renewable energy, which the facility itself either would have to produce that renewable, which isn't likely because that would be a whole other big project. So what it means is it would need to rely on the grid, which isn't renewable yet. So right now, 98% of hydrogen comes from fossil fuel. So to make green, you need to have a source to produce it, then either compress it or freeze it at another enormous amount of energy output in order to have it be in a form that can be transported. Then it would need to be transported over our roads, and it is highly corrosive, it leaks, and it's highly explosive. It then needs to go to a fueling station. The fueling station costs are cost prohibitive. The figures that I have is $1.9 to $4 million. Then the car, when it uses it, so a fuel cell is another whole piece that needs to be made with some form of energy. In order to be green, it would need to be renewable energy. That hydrogen then is transformed in the fuel cell to electric, and it runs on a battery. So all of that process and all of that energy could have could be eliminated by just plugging in an electric vehicle. There have been many times when hydrogen has tried to make a comeback, and they have failed. The energy density of hydrogen is 1/3 that of a battery electric vehicle. So I don't understand what's going on with the president's team or with the governor's team in even going forward with putting all the money into hydrogen. It is really a boondoggle. According to our electric vehicle engineers who are in Silicon Valley, who are in leading corporations in Silicon Valley, according to Mark Jacobson, who is a professor at Stanford, who has provided the roadmaps for all 50 states for their renewable projects and 149 countries for their roadmaps, and was the foundation for the Green New Deal, has said it's already handled with electric. So land transportation is handled. Tesla, Volvo, and a number of others have heavy duty vehicles that are electric. This whole thing about that they're heavy, blah, blah, blah. we are in a climate crisis, and electric vehicles can address those without the need for all of this money that will need to be spent to build that whole industry. Now, we understand that there are some aspects of the decarbonization, such as cement and steel, which are difficult to do with all electric, and so hydrogen may make sense there. But for land vehicles, it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary waste, and that money could go directly to decarbonizing the grid, so that all things that are plugged in, the buildings, the vehicles, they can all be decarbonized. We can all be running all of our things on on solar, wind, and water. And Mark Jacobson, professor of Stanford, says exactly that in his book and his things. I want to say also something about vehicle miles traveled. So for people who are in an urban area and are driving their kids to school and sitting there spewing energy while they wait to drop their kids off or wait to pick them up, that really makes sense. But in our county, people who cannot afford to live in the city of Santa Cruz have to travel distances to be able to live. Buses, they take so much time. I was without a car for 2 months. It takes so much time that people could be spending with their families. And so it's just not it's not so reasonable just across the board to say, let's reduce our vehicle miles traveled. I think there's an equity issue there, people who can't afford to live in the places where they work. It's a privilege for people who can live and work in the same community. One other thing is that since my colleagues and I, the Electric Vehicle Association here in the Central Coast, we have introduced electric vehicles. We made up the concept of ride and drives. We introduced them 19 years ago. Our colleagues in Silicon Valley, for a couple decades before, were working on that and doing ride and drives. So we have the good fortune here in Santa Cruz that our city, because we have introduced them and they've become acceptable, that they have a goal in our city to install 1,200 EV charging stations, and we already have a bunch. So that's an awesome progress. And I thank you for all of your work and your contributions to making that sort of thing happen. Our local air district has given us grants for our ride and drives, has given us grants for charging and lots of other things. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to ask a question or address a comment or concern? Now I'll pass it over to my colleague, Michaela.
Gladys Bustos, can I unmute?
Unmute. My name is Gladys Bustos. I'm working with a mayor in the Central Valley. He was able to get a contract so students who want to go to his community college rent a Tesla for the day for $1. So why can that organization or that mayor have his act together and the rest of the state, what the heck are we doing? I would encourage that if somebody from CARB wants to connect with me, I would happy to share the mayor's information and the nonprofit that helps him go after grants. But there's a lot of opportunities. I don't agree with everything, but I see there's people who are implementing. So I applaud CARB and all the opportunities available in the state if you know how to tap into them. Thank you.
Thank you, Gladys. At this time, we have no raised hands and no questions in the email currently.
If we do not have any more questions or comments at this time, we can move on to close. So if we can go to the wrap up and next steps. And I do want to thank you all for your questions and comments and collaboration. So we appreciate your time and ideas to move forward. Again, please contact us, email us your concerns, and we'll be sure to work with you. And so this evening community meeting, well, the evening community meetings will be held every Thursday of the month. Excuse me, every third Tuesday of the month. It's getting late. But however, we sometimes need to shift them. Nevertheless, the next slide will be April 6th. The next slide, right? The next meeting will be April 16th. Next slide. And so thank you all again for being here. Please contact us to say hi and or provide an update on how something may or may not be working for you and your community. So we are here to listen, and you can reach us or reach our team at Clean Transportation Incentives at arb.ca.gov. And staff can drop that link in the chat again. And to keep your inboxes up to date on the funding plan process, please subscribe via the listserv, and that link will also be dropped in the chat. And thank you.